Before I go, I'd like to know why I have to die.
Silence will fall when the question is asked. All the times I've heard those words, I never realized it was my silence. My death.
Doctor Who, the series.
Welcome to Talking Who, the internet's only live, coming to you live across the internet, and it's the only one on the internet of a live internet talk show reviewing the latest in Doctor Who, the latest episodes, the latest DVDs, the latest spin-offs, the latest merchandise, and the latest news. Everything that's going on in Doctor Who, here we are reviewing it for you now.
And it's your show as well, so you gotta tweet us.
We've got the message boards here. We're on Ustream and YouTube Live, so you're obviously watching us on one or the other. But we've got the message boards here. Come in the message boards. Give us your points of view. Ask us your questions, and we'll try and answer them as best as possible. Or repeat what you say.
We have an iPad here monitoring your tweets. So if you tweet us at Talking Who, we will see that and be able to read out your tweets as well.
So there you are. There's our Twitter, Talking Who, at Talking Who.
And of course, I'm Elisar Cabrera.
I'm Sean Harry. And together we're Talking Who. That's all we like to do all day long, talk Doctor Who. You can follow either of us on Twitter as well.
Indeed. And good.
So, you know, the big news for everybody here this weekend is that the final episode's just aired.
The final episode was aired on Saturday, The Wedding of Riversong.
Yes.
So start getting your comments as well, because we'll be reading out some tweets about that we've got sent in during the week. But if you've got other things to say about The Wedding of Riversong, your thoughts, ideas, how you thought the story ended.
Wait a second. How did that get there? We had some unexpected visitors in here.
Who knows? I've forgotten anyway. So what we're talking about?
Talking Who. Doctor Who. That's what we're talking about.
Great. Okay. So guys, this week we have the Wedding of Riversong to talk about. We've got Sarah Jane Adventures.
Actually, I missed it.
You missed it? Well, I'll be talking about the Sarah Jane
Adventures. I was working, so I've still got to get to see the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Obviously,
I got home, having worked on the weekend, I had Sky Plus Doctor Who, but I completely forgot Merlin was on as well.
Merlin. It's no Camelot, there's no boobs in it.
What you need, Eva Green wandering around naked. Yeah. So what did people get on the message boards here? And somebody's here, Whovian Wars, has actually said, I wasn't looking forward to this episode, it being a one-part finale, but I was surprised. I really enjoyed it. My favourite series finale so far.
That's good to see that.
Whereas Elizabeth Oriana says that your red fez goes very nicely with your grey sweater.
It's actually purple sweater, but does it show up grey?
It probably shows up grey on YouTube. Well, what happened there?
Is Ustream working, by the way? I assume it is because
it was working comments. Just a few seconds ago.
We're getting comments. I'm assuming that we are getting. If anyone in Ustream just wants to just tweet us, make sure that we're all... Yeah, Ustream is fine. Fine. Good. All right. It just wasn't showing up on our own computers. Anyway, the other news, of course, is this was also the very final ever Doctor Who Confidential on Saturday as well.
Yes. Which
I don't know how well that's seen outside the UK. I don't know how many other countries show Doctor Who Confidential at the same time as Doctor Who. But if you don't, Doctor Who Confidential is a...
it's been going since the very first episode of the new series with Christopher Eccleston.
Looking behind the scenes of that episode, but also sometimes putting it into context of the whole history of Doctor Who.
And
lots of interviews with the cast
and
also the makers.
7 series it's been going. So, it's very much become part of the average Doctor Who fan's viewing habits.
It's been cancelled. We did announce that last week on Talking Who,
but there are ways that people campaign to let the BBC know that you would like the show kept.
Petitionbuzz.com/petitions/save DWC.
Yeah.
Add your name to the petition. Use your real name. Don't make any silly names like Amy or Rory, because those don't count as they don't. But in the past, there were campaigns to save BBC Radio 6.
Yeah.
And it worked. So the BBC do listen if enough fans...
There was campaigns to say it's in the States, to save Roswell and to save Star Trek, which got them both an extra season.
I was thinking specifically about the BBC. And,
yes.
There was a huge campaign to save BBC Radio 6, and it worked. So they will listen if you but add your names.
Can people let me know if in the message boards if Ustream is working for you? It's not working very well for me. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, it seems to be working fine now.
Okay. Blah 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 1999. I liked the Series 6 montage. Felt like a farewell to DWC. Also, I believe if DWC hadn't rebranded it, it may not have got the series. Yeah, that's interesting thoughts. Anyway, so they've also got a Twitter for Save DWC, which is right there on screen at Save DWC. So follow them as well. When you sign a petition, there's also a chance to leave a note on the Facebook page. And should we read some of those out?
Sure. Yes. Now, Ian Redman. He says, Doctor Who Confidential is easily the best show that currently airs on BBC Three. As someone who wants to work in the television industry, it's been a great learning resource for me. I really don't want to see it end.
Adam Simon Southwood. Confidential's been an indispensable part of my Doctor Who viewing experience ever since the series came back. Couldn't do without it. Well made, pretty much unique in concept amongst all the other dross on TV currently. Plus, what will it be replaced by that might get more ratings?
Now, James Gray says Confidential is one of the few high-quality shows on BBC Three, and I know for a fact that it is not only very interesting, informative and educating, especially to those of us wanting to enter the TV industry, but extremely inspiring to many, many people. I tweeted about how it had further inspired me to follow my aspiration into making good TV and got numerous replies saying the same thing from others, saying that the show had also inspired them too. The show needs to be saved, otherwise the BBC is giving us proof that it opts not to listen when it doesn't want to.
Karen Ford says, oh come on, DWC is better than Doctor Who some weeks. I love seeing how much goes into making an episode and getting to see people like special effects guru Danny Hargreaves. They can't stop it, they just can't.
And Sass Hill has commented, I love Doctor Who Confidential. Since Moffat has taken over Doctor Who, Confidential has become a million times better than it used to, and I would hate so much for it to be axed.
So guys, sign the petition, add your own comments to the Facebook comments on that petition.
Yeah.
And yes, and let's see what happens. I mean, the campaign is doing very well. They've had some recent publicity, just even today on the MSN Network's website. Radio Times website has also mentioned the campaign. So the word is getting out there. I think some of the media is now looking into it, seeing that the fans are feeling really, really upset about this. So we wholeheartedly back it and just put your name.
Yes.
Let's see what we can do.
Let's see what we can get done on it.
But this week,
yes,
the Doctor died.
Well, apparently.
The Wedding of River Song.
Now, I don't know. I mean, when we started off this season with the first two-parter, and it was the first season opener that Moffat switched it round. We have a two-parter opening, but a one-part to finish off the season.
But it actually felt like a two-parter.
It did. They crammed. It was very fast. There was no padding in the episode whatsoever. And I actually think he did a pretty good job of actually tying up all those huge loose ends that he'd left floating around all over the place. It was probably the most satisfying episode this season written by Moffat.
Yes, no, I would agree with that. No, definitely. It's
I particularly love the opening montage, the CGI. I would have loved to, if it had been a two-parter, I actually think I would have loved to have seen more of this Earth where all of time was existing at the same point.
I know. I was getting very excited. I was thought, oh my god, they're introducing a new parallel universe.
Yeah.
That is going to be so cool to visit all the time. But I guess now it doesn't exist anymore. But it was, it was a great introduction to the planet Earth living in this bizarre time bubble caused by the non-death of the Doctor.
Yes. I think they've really got to kind of get around this whole thing that was introduced by Russell T Davies of fixed points in time.
Well, there never really has been fixed points in time.
It was first introduced as an idea of a fixed point of time. What was it, in the Rivers of Mars? I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that was the first time it was introduced. Wars of Mars.
Yeah.
And the Doctor actually broke a fixed point in time then, and it didn't screw everything
he seems
up.
to break it all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the history of Doctor Who is almost like. I mean, you can't make sense of any of the stories. If you try to put everything into chronological order,
it's a bit like
it wouldn't make sense.
The Doctor, at one point, went forward in time to show what would happen if he didn't stop Sutekh. And surely that would have screwed up every single fixed point of time if he's failed to stop.
A parallel universe, an offshoot. And this happens all the time. I'm still convinced that Susan Foreman can't exist anymore because she's now stuck in a parallel universe that can't have happened because of Genesis of the Daleks. And every Dalek story that's ever happened subsequent to that. Because obviously that happened at a time when Genesis of Daleks hadn't actually happened, and the Doctor hadn't interfered with the creation of Daleks and what timeline they went on. So now she's actually stuck in a universe that can no longer exist.
Well, maybe Susan Foreman was that mysterious Time Lord who tried to help David Tennant during his regeneration.
Lisa Gifford has tweeted in saying Pompeii was a fixed point in time.
Right, yeah.
And Jack became a fixed point in time, which obviously we did refer to in
the review
of Miracle
Day. And now is Rex a fixed point in time?
And what does that actually mean anymore, I suppose, is the other thing, So, storyline-wise, I mean, there was a lot crammed into this one.
Yes.
So, we meet Amy, who remembers...
Well, it seems to
me
no matter what, because this has happened before though, so no matter what happens with Amy and happens with time, she will always remember her encounters with the Doctor.
Yes. And of course, Rory doesn't.
Yeah.
And they can't actually remember each other either.
Yeah.
She sort of has vague recollections of things.
But she definitely remembers her encounters with the Doctor, which, previously happened last season when the universe itself was rebooted. I also liked the idea at the end of this that now Doctor Who... one of the things I didn't like in the Russell T Davies period was previously, for like 26 seasons, the Doctor would turn up somewhere, nobody would know who he was. He was this mysterious traveller, he would turn up, he would help people, and he would go. And suddenly he'd turn up everywhere, he's like a superhero.
Yes.
And everybody's heard of him, he's the most famous person in the galaxy. And I feel like with the storyline, Moffat's trying to get back to that, because now...
The ending of this episode, this series, has basically created a reboot, essentially, of what the Doctor Who universe can be. He doesn't have to turn up and everyone knows who he is. We don't have to have... Well, I mean, I guess the whole thing about this entire story arc was people knowing who he was to the point that they actually want to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Because they now think he's a threat to the very existent.
Yes.
But how this universe that's been created... Because it's all... I mean, I suppose that if you looked into it too much, you kind of think, well, why did they want to get rid of him since the alternative is somehow even worse? I don't know.
I also find it interesting we got a little cameo from a Dalek in there.
We had a cameo from a Dalek, yes.
Because otherwise this would have been the first season without an appearance from a Dalek.
Well, you did say the Daleks would come back.
Yes, I was hoping for a bit more of an impact from them.
Not a dying Dalek.
Yes, but, I still think they got a better... Just that one scene, he got a better go of it than the Cybermen got this season.
Well, indeed. So we have some tweets to read out.
Some tweets, yes. Let's have a look at what's going on in Twitter.
Robert Hardy 6 says, Talking Who. Brilliant end to River Song arc, but the Doctor married? Still, it was a robot double, so maybe it doesn't count.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Now, Brad Wyman, Doctor Who, Live remains great. One more Matt Smith season. Oh, only one more?
Well, it means he's going to carry on because of
Yes.
he's not dead.
It's got me worried there.
Yeah,
It made me think that Matt Smith was only going to be in it for another year.
The question. At Gallifrey Times says, episode 13 was amazing. Such a good finale. Great acting from everyone. May have been confusing for younger ones. Sad about DWC.
And Barry Aldridge has put Talking Who. I felt it was a really strong final. Better than the season 5 final. It gelled well, but still don't like the silence. I have to agree. I felt it was a lot more cohesive than the last season.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, do we really know what the silence want with the Doctor's death?
Something. I don't know. I mean, remember I'd been theorising that they'd been hired by the Daleks or somebody like that. I mean, I would assume it's got to be a race of conquerors or something that wants the Doctor out the way, but I can't see why, so far, a proper explanation of why this group would want the Doctor killed and why they'd have to use River Song as well. I was wondering if maybe it's because something to do with her being a Time Lord. But
yeah.
There were still a couple of loose ends, but I was kind of happy, the way it was tied up. Another interesting point was that the Doctor invites his best friends to spend his final hour with him. And a rather moving moment, he was going to invite Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart along to it. But that does then open it up of why so many other of his close friends weren't invited.
Perhaps he just gave up after the sad news. In case somebody else had died since. But anyway, we've had some tweets in, obviously, as well about the death of the Brigadier, how that was handled and announced. Barry Aldridge says, I thought it was great to mention the Brigadier and what happened to his character at the end. Well done, Moffat.
Lisa Gifford put, I thought it was a very classy way to acknowledge the Brig.
And Juan Madedios says, I really loved the tribute to the Brigadier. I shed a tear.
I really loved that because, he passed away this year. And so it was nice to mention him. I actually would have liked to mention, although I can understand probably why they didn't do it, because her series is starting this week. But I would love to have mentioned of Sarah Jane.
She's still technically alive in the Doctor Who universe.
And Liz Sladen, but I suppose they would have had to have shown the Sarah Jane adventures, got those episodes out of the way.
Yeah.
But out of all his companions, out of all the companions he's ever had, I would have thought Sarah Jane would have been, if he's sending out invites to his best friends, Sarah Jane, was probably the closest companion and the one who crossed over to the Mordor. She was, a strong companion with John Pertwee. Her chemistry between her and Tom Baker is still probably the best chemistry between any Doctor and companion. And then she ended up helping David Tennant as well. So I can't see the Doctor ever forgetting. But that's what he said when she left. He said, I won't forget you, Sarah Jane.
No, indeed. And I doubt that she'll be dead in Doctor Who universe. I'm sure Sarah Jane is still going to be considered even after these episodes, that her character will still be around and doing things. We just won't get to see those adventures anymore. I do have an idea for a...
You do? I saw you tweeting about this.
For an adventures that could continue replacing the Sarah Jane adventures. So, the story of River Song is kind of convoluted and goes across many time streams. But what we do know is that she regenerated in 1969 into Mel's, the young Mel's, and from 1969 up until the 1990s, when she would have been old enough to then introduce herself to her parents, you've got basically almost 3 decades of a young child doing whatever she wants, waiting for her parents to be born and for them to be old enough for her to introduce it. So what if
the River Song adventures?
What if exactly
or
the adventures of Melody Pond? She's a science fiction character. She's a time lady. We don't actually necessarily see her, I think, regenerate into the young lady Mel's that we see in Let's Kill Hitler. So who knows how many regenerations are actually in between that? period. But she is a character from the future. She's from the 52nd century, I guess she was born in. She could have plenty of adventures in that 30-year gap.
So I think you better write that up and send it off to Stephen Moffat.
There you go, Stephen Moffat. So start tweeting Stephen Moffat now, saying, Talking Who reckons you should be doing...
Hang on a minute.
How did that happen?
Have we got some unexpected visitors here?
We're going to have to check the video of this later on and actually just check to see if we're actually missing any chunks.
We're missing some stuff going on here. So thank goodness we're recording this.
So yes, what was I saying? Stephen Moffat. Tweet Stephen Moffat saying, Talking Who have come up with this idea for the adventures of Melody Pond, young Melody Pond, filling in the gap. It would be a period piece, obviously, because we're talking about the 1970s. Hey, it'd be quite funky.
Somebody asks here, blah, 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 1999, wants to know who brought Mel's up.
Who brought... I don't think she brought... I don't think anyone brought her up. I think she's just... she's not a child. Even though she would have been a child when she was introduced to Amy and Rory, when she meets them and goes to school with them, in her mind, she can't really be a child because she's been around since the 1960s. She was put into an orphanage in the 1960s. 1969, she escapes from the orphanage and basically spends 30 years wandering around until she can get to Ledworth. And her time stream means, Amy and Rory's time stream means that she can actually join them and become part of their group of friends.
Okay, so that's...
Whovian Wars makes a good point. What are the Silencers' name? The Silence is obviously a religious order.
I think the Silence is the name for a group. I don't think they're actually an alien race.
We don't actually know the name of this particular alien race.
That's true. Because we've had the Headless Monks.
The Headless Monks.
We've got Madame Kavorian's soldiers. And then we've got those aliens. Now, maybe he's referring to those aliens.
He's referring to the aliens.
What is their name?
What are these aliens?
But they're obviously all part of one group. And do you think we will see Dorian back?
I think Dorian... I don't know. I mean, I suppose...
Or is he enjoying his Wi-Fi down there too much?
He's a character who knows things. Could he betray the Doctor?
Or
for a new body or something?
Or could the Doctor maybe see him once or twice a season to get information?
Indeed, yeah. He's a man of much... I tell you what, speaking of Dorian and the Headless Dorian, do you think we're going to have many kids who had nightmares after seeing the cannibalistic skulls?
No, nothing is quite as scary as Mr. Sin.
They were pretty creepy, those skulls,
yes.
I have to say. Really, lots of... it was good.
So shall we move on to Phanoptica next?
Well, I thought we could actually just quickly talk about River Song's timeline.
Yes.
Because obviously that was an important part of Doctor Who Confidential.
Okay, well,
saw it. But I don't know how many people actually get to see Doctor Who Confidential outside the UK. So they may not have seen this video about River Song's timeline.
Oh, good. It's a bit all over the place. I always wondered if Stephen Moffat had read The Time Traveller's Wife. Here we have people having a relationship who are time travellers, and it's all over the place. The very last appearance of River Song is Silence in the Library, which is actually her first.
Well, let's go in order. So, in A Good Man Goes to War, she's a baby. So we know that, okay.
And also,
from that point,
in the second episode of this season, she's a baby. That's probably her second appearance when we see her regenerating.
So yes,
and also at the orphanage,
the Impossible Astronaut strike so she goes to an orphanage and she's brought up for the most part from a baby to a young girl.
Yeah,
and then Day of the Moon, we see her regenerate.
And then Let's Kill Hitler.
So Let's Kill Hitler then covers several things because obviously we see a flashback of Mel's meeting Amy and Rory and spending that time together. And then, of course, she meets the Doctor finally, and then Let's Kill Hitler. She regenerates into the River Song that we knew.
Yeah.
Again, covering several different timelines: 21st century, 20th century, 52nd century.
Now, the previous episode, The Cybermen.
Yes.
At the end of that is pretty much the next part of River Song.
Exactly. So we know that she's been deposited in the 52nd century.
Yes.
And she learns to become an archaeologist.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, this is at the point then that presumably she has some adventure in this, you know. But at the end of that part of her life, she gets captured.
Yeah.
By.
And then that moves her back to the Impossible Astronaut, where she kills the Doctor.
And of course, then we get into a timey-wimey parallel universe in the Wedding of River Song, which then leads into the older River Song, not the baby, in A Good Man Goes to War.
Yeah.
And then again, River Song going back into the Impossible Astronaut.
Yes.
As a River Song who's now watching the Doctor get killed. Now she obviously remembers. She must remember. She knows who the astronaut is. She knows it's her because she's already lived that.
Yeah.
So she has to be an actress, essentially, because she has to pretend she doesn't know what's going on. And Day of the Moon, of course, as well, then we've got her essentially being superhero River Song and then getting deposited back into prison.
For having killed the Doctor. Yeah.
So at some point, you know, in that time frame, I think, you know, Big Finish have got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of work to finish.
You say Big Finish, they don't actually have rights to any of the new season characters.
Right, okay, well then somebody else can do it.
But there's definitely, I think, a lot of, you said about early River Song, but there's actually a lot of mileage for Alex. I mean, I could very much see him doing something. Moffat wants to do something like, because very much in terms of character, she's very much a female Captain Jack.
Yes.
You know, larger than life, action-packed, carrying a gun, and I could very much see a show. When I say like Torchwood, I don't mean like Torchwood, a show that, like Torchwood, was a show that was carried by John Barrowman's charisma, than doing a show which is centered around Alex Kingston and is carried by what she brings to the character.
I mean, what we do know is, of course, obviously, in her time in jail in the 52nd century, she goes out quite often and leaves and comes back.
Yes. She
of course,
escapes all the time.
And one of those times she escapes, she goes, is the Pandora opens, stroke the Big Bang.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we start going backward in seasons now, as far as Doctor Who, and now we've got the Time of the Angels. And the crash of the Byzantium, which then, of course, gets referenced at the end of the Wedding of River Song, when she, after that adventure, she then goes to see her parents to tell them the Doctor is indeed alive.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing there is, so what do you think is going to now happen with Rory and Amy Pond?
Well, indeed.
I mean, is this them farewell for the TARDIS, from the TARDIS, or do you think they'll be back next season as full-on companions?
I don't think they'll be full-on companions. I think we're going to get part-time companions, I think, from them. But going back to River Song, and then, of course, you know, the next story after that is The Silence of the Library.
Yes, and that's her final adventure.
It's the final adventure. And now we really understand what she means when she looks at David Tennant's 10th Doctor, and says he looks so young. Because actually, the Doctor that we've just had is actually 200 years later than the Doctor that we had at the start of the season.
But that Doctor's had a lot of adventures.
So actually, we've got this
missing adventures.
We've actually got this 200-year gap where essentially, I guess, he's going around companionless.
Yeah.
And sometimes dropping in on River Song and probably going on an adventure with her and depositing her back in. Because obviously we know that's what they do, because when Rory goes to see her in A Good Man Goes to War, she's actually just back from an adventure with the Doctor, presumably. Which is...
We've actually got a little argument going on in the message boards at the moment.
Oh, really? Okay.
Should River Song become a companion?
Should River Song become a companion? Well, I don't think...
I
think her story is now over. We've actually done the River Song story.
I would be happy to see her make a guest appearance every season, but at the same time, I don't think I'd want to see her as a companion. because I think she's a bit too overpowering for the. I think the Doctor should be the main focal point, and it's a bit like with Captain Jack. You got somebody who takes a bit of the shine too much.
Yeah. She's and the thing is, I suppose the thing is this season is the River Song season. This is all about River Song.
It's tying up that storm. We always knew that. Actually, I think he's tied up a bit earlier than I thought he would, but we always knew that's one of the things that would happen during Moffat's period. And it almost makes you wonder when you introduce the character of River Song, as if he already had it worked out in his head what he was going to do if he took over as the producer of Doctor Who.
I mean, if she comes back, the question is, at what point in her timeline does she come back?
Yeah.
And would it, in fact, actually be the Doctor going back into her timeline, for instance, in that essentially the Storm Cage era when she's in prison, borrowing her again? But obviously, it's him having to keep spoilers from her because now he knows her entire timeline now. But he's having to maybe pretend to be an earlier version of himself. Who knows?
Anyway, we've got to move on now.
Indeed.
So let's move on to the next section of the show, which is the Fandorica. We should look at what's going on with Doctor Who merchandise or within fandom itself.
Well, this one was tweeted to us.
Yes.
As something that was found on BuzzFeed. Someone has actually made a handbag out of duct tape. The type of tape that you would fix plumbing with, use it in film sets, gaffer tape type stuff. But they've actually made a bag out of it. Quite interesting, quite funny.
Shows the creativity of Doctor Who fans.
Guys, if you find something weird, wonderful, anything like this, fan-made stuff that you think we should feature on it, just send it to us because, it's hard to find all this stuff. There's tons of it on the internet. But, if you find something, just send it to us. We'd love to showcase it. But the other thing for Fan
Radio Rassilon.
I wanted to give a shout-out. Radio Rassilon is back. One of my favourite Doctor Who podcasts. These guys are just funny, brilliant, really, really irreverent stuff. They're on episode 23 right now. Check it out. It's two guys plus a kid called I Am William. And I Am William is just brilliant, guys. He's so funny. Absolutely. It's definitely worth listening to. These guys, it's really one of my favourite podcasts because there's a lot out there. But that's definitely one you guys need to check out. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our DVD. Well, Sarah Jane Adventures first. Oh, okay, so you're going to have to talk about that. I actually missed the set. I was running an event on the weekend. I actually forgot Sarah Jane was on, so I've got to catch up on this on iPlayer. Okay, well, Sarah Jane Adventures... Well, I don't want to give you spoilers. Then. Okay. So maybe we'll do it next week. We can do 2 sets of Sarah Jane Adventures. Yeah. How about we do that? But I will read out some tweets from fans who've given us their thoughts on Sarah Jane. At Stormageddon24, Sarah Jane Adventures Sky was the most entertaining episode of Sarah Jane's Adventures so far. I'm going to miss this amazing show. Whereas Ian RDW, brilliant, great build-up and mystery in part 1. It was sad watching what we now know to be the beginning of the end, though. Indeed. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll leave our Sarah Jane Adventures review till next week when Sean's had a chance to have a look at it. Yep. And we'll do 2 episodes of Sarah Jane, well, 2 stories, because it's actually 4 episodes altogether. And DVD review of the week. Now, the latest DVD to have been released is Frontier in Space. Colony in Space. Colony in Space. I would call it Frontier in Space. That's because I think they called Doctor Who and the Space War Frontier in Space, didn't they, when they did the Target novelisation? Yeah. Confuses me. Colony in Space has just been released on DVD. Neither of us have got around to watching it. We're going to review that one next week. So this week, we're going to review one of the all-time great Doctor Who stories. So you know, we've already reviewed it anyway, one of the great stories, Caves of Androzani. We've got some great artwork there from Best Doctor Who, who's actually at band practice at the moment, so he's not watching us live, but he'll be watching us later on YouTube. Caves of Androzani. Now, I've only watched the original release, but you've got the... I've got both releases. I mean, it was very interesting, Caves of Androzani. It was one of the first Doctor Who stories released on DVD, quite understandably. What has happened recently is To Entertain has actually gone back to some of the older releases, which didn't have many extras.
and the restoration restoration on the episode wasn't as good as it could have been.
Okay, because I've noticed. I mean, I noticed actually there was quite a lot of sort of video lines.
Well, the one
Are
of
they
the big
still there
causes that they can only do so much. One of the big causes of video lines is when they were shooting
guns,
those submachine guns, and they do their best on it, but you can't unfortunately get rid of it completely. But they've gone back, and they first started with Remembrance of the Daleks, the Sylvester McCoy story, and they re-released that story, and then they've done 2 revisitation box sets.
And they've got a third one planned.
They've got a third one planned, plus they also redid Spearhead from Space, and also next year getting Vengeance on Barross as well.
5 Doctors as well.
5 Doctors, yes.
Disc box set as well.
Yeah. But the first Revisitations box set, if you are just starting out and buying Doctor Who DVDs, it's probably one of the best box sets to get. You've got Caves of Androzani on it.
Yep.
You've got Talons of Wayne Cheyenne, and you've got Doctor Who the movie with some spectacular extras on it. It's literally is just the best value for money for Doctor Who fans.
Blah blah blah. 1999 says I have not yet seen the Revisitations version, but I saw a sci-fi feature-length version of it before. Sci-Fi Channel, I assume in the US, is that?
Could be over here. They did a. But Caves of Androzani regularly. I mean, I don't think you can say what's the best Doctor Who story, simply because it's very much a matter of Doctor Who. It covers so many styles.
Yeah.
You get comedic episodes, you get very gothic episodes, you get some action episodes.
I mean, this episode was voted in 2009 in Doctor Who magazine by readers as the best Doctor Who story.
Oh yeah, but I was simply going to say it's always within the top 10 all-time greats. But the previous Doctor Who poll, it was Genesis of the Daleks.
Well, there is.
One.
I mean, I suppose there's also a generational thing as well.
Yeah, but I think you're going to have. I don't want to even hear about lost stories because memory can cheat. So I would love to be able to sit down and watch Evil of the Daleks or something like that and see if it's as good as the script pertains to it being. But I certainly think Caves of Androzani. You've got a lot from Tom Baker's early period, like Ark in Space, Pyramids of Mars, Genesis of the Daleks, Deadly Assassin, Talons of Wang Chiang. We've also got The City of Death, Remembrance of the Daleks, Girl in the Fireplace, Blink. There's a lot of stories which I say are contenders for the best. Caves of Androzani is up among them. And why is it one of the best? It's because it was written by Robert Holmes.
Well, indeed.
I bang about that but Robert Holmes, to this day, is the best writer they ever had on the show.
Robert Holmes, I mean, this was, I guess, a return to form. And actually, in the story, it does feel like Doctor Who from the 1970s.
It feels like almost no other Doctor Who to me because there's almost no humour in it. It's very, very serious. The characters he's dealing with are probably some of the most dangerous characters he's ever dealt with. And when you look at some of the other times that have mercenaries in it, compared to what he was up against in this, it's a very, very dangerous feeling story.
I mean, Robert Holmes obviously was the lead writer in a lot of the Gothic era stories.
What happened was,
we have a very Gothic.
Robert Holmes has been writing the story. His first story was the Crotons.
Yes.
A Patrick Troughton story, and from the Crotons right up until trying to remember the name of it, the one from the Keys to Time trilogy with the Power of Kroll. So from the Crotons to the Power of Kroll, he was putting in 2 to 3 Doctor Who stories a year. And he decided to take a break. Didn't want to write for the series. Felt he'd just done too much. Felt he was burned out. Wanted to take a break. And then there was a change of regime on the show. And John Nathan Turner didn't want anybody from previously who'd worked on the show back on it. He didn't want Robert Holmes writing for the show again. But Eric Savard was quite insistent. And so there'd been a good 4 or 5 year break of Robert Holmes writing for the show. And so he got back. Come in back top to form for Peter Davison's final story, and he said he really wanted to put the 5th Doctor through the ringer for his final adventure. And it's got an amazing cast by it. Christopher Gable as Sharas Jack. He's just one of those villains. He's like one of those villains that reminds me of like in Marvel comics where you've got like Magneto or Doctor Doom, where you've got this villain who's the bad guy, but you actually kind of sympathise with him.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I was about to say. I mean, Robert Holmes was a writer, obviously, in the Gothic phase of Doctor Who.
Oh, and this is very much Phantom of the Opera.
And it's Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
You've even got his mask being very Phantom of the Opera, and of course Perry becomes, he has to go and kidnap Perry, much like the Phantoms kidnaps
but it's
Christine.
the same with what's happened to Sharos J. He's a bad guy, but you have some sympathy for him, and you almost feel that given different circumstances from the moment they meet, he feels a kinship with the Doctor. He doesn't really want to harm him, and he feels like he can have some kind of
They're both outside
rapport with him. Yes,
but they're united by the love of science.
Yes,
it is a great story. Do I agree that it's the greatest Doctor Who story? I wouldn't say.
I can't say you can actually say there's a greatest one.
I think it's quite slow.
I would disagree with you on that. There are some amazing action sequences in that, and the other thing about it is it was directed by Graham Harper.
Yes,
who's the one person who's moved on from classic Doctor Who.
Yes.
To work on, and he became one of the top directors on new Doctor Who.
Indeed, yes.
And he actually has this style that's very different from a lot of the other directors who work on the show. It's mostly in his lighting. In that, he really does get this very dark, atmospheric feel to his
It
work.
is a very atmospheric story. I mean, it is. If you haven't got the DVD of this one, go out and get it. I mean,
get the restoration box set, because you also get the Talons of Wayne Chiang with it and the movie.
Awesome.
I'm not so crazy on the Paul McGann movie. It's fun, but with Talons of Wayne Chiang and Case of Androzani, you've got two of the best of Doctor Who.
Sean and I both agree that Talons of Wen Chiang is the greatest one. Whovian Wars, I know, said that they love Caves of Androzani as well. I know Barry Aldridge, he's not been able to watch us live, but I do know that he also loves this particular story.
It's a fantastic, and it's just, I think it was a bit sad on Peter Davidson that he did his first 2 years on Doctor Who, and just the way the contracting was done, they needed an answer towards the second season of whether he was going to stay on and leave. And he had been advised by Patrick Troughton to just do 3 years, which I disagree with. I think you need a good 4 to 5 years to really. Yeah. And Peter Davison had felt that his scripts in his second year weren't very good, so he decided to leave. And then he says, by the time he got to his third year and he saw the scripts that were coming in, he actually suddenly felt very sorry he was leaving and actually wished he could have stayed on a bit longer.
And
I felt that at this point he's really coming into his own. I think he needed another season as Doctor to really establish himself.
Because Peter Davison's era is really is defined by the fact that there was such a large TARDIS crew. I mean, he had 3 companions at one point, and suddenly going right back to basics here, and it's just him and Perry, and they work so well together. And you think, she gets introduced only in the story before, in Planet of Fire, which is the outgoing story for Turlo as well, I believe.
Yes.
But it's just Perry and the Doctor in this one, and they're just such a great couple. I mean, it would be really interesting to have seen more of Peter Davison with only one companion. And that actually brings us on to the regeneration itself. Yes, which we did.
And I actually think this is one of the best regenerations that they ever did on the show visually.
Perry, can you hear me? Open your mouth. You must drink this. Is this death?
Doctor, what's happened?
Perry, I see Professor Jackage newest stuff. Good old Jackage.
Jackage, you got the bat's milk?
Contains an antivesicant, I imagine. Interesting.
Where is it?
What?
The bat's milk.
Finished. Only enough for you.
There must be something I can do. Tell me.
Too late, Perry. Going soon. It's time to say goodbye.
Don't give up. You can't leave me now.
I might regenerate. I don't know. Feels different this time.
What was it you always told me, Doctor? Braveheart?
You must survive. Many of your enemies would delight in your death, Doctor.
You're needed. You mustn't die, Doctor.
Many of your enemies would delight in your death.
You know
You're
that.
needed. You mustn't die, Doctor.
You know that.
Adric?
You're
You
needed.
know that.
You mustn't die, Doctor.
No, my dear Doctor, you must die. Die, Doctor. Die, Doctor.
Doctor?
You're expecting someone else?
I...
That's 3 eyes in one breath. Makes you sound a rather egotistical young lady.
What's happened?
Change, my dear. And it seems not a moment too soon.
That's some fantastic piece of television, that is there. I mean, I really do think that regeneration sequence is one of the best, not just regeneration sequence, but one of the best sequences in Doctor Who's history.
No, it is. It's a great one, and Perry. I mean, Perry. It would have been really interesting to see more of Perry and the Fifth Doctor, because it's like, you know, she comes in and has this great story with the Fifth Doctor, and then suddenly she's put with Colin Baker, who is so different. He's such a cold Doctor compared to the warmth of Peter Davison.
Well, one thing I just wanted to go onto this regeneration as well is what I really liked about this is there's something I liked about what they did with story-wise with this and with Tom Baker's regeneration and with John Pertwee's regeneration, where the Doctor, in terms of that Doctor dying, actually makes a, you know, they're not killed or forcibly changed by the Time Lords or something, but actually has to make a heroic choice to sacrifice themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are assuming this is only a Russell T Davies creation.
Yes.
That he has to be this.
I felt there was a huge difference between, and it just showed you something so much better here. The Doctor has to save Perry.
Yes.
And at no point, there's only enough antidote to save one of them. And at no point does the Doctor question it. No point does the Doctor hesitate. He just gives Perry the antidote straight away. And Perry's like, is there enough for you? And he just accepts it. I had to, you know, it never would have occurred to the Doctor to, you know, think about himself. He was thinking about others first. Whereas when David Tennant had to save Bernard Cribbins, he starts whinging and crying for 5 minutes while he's in the radiation capsule. And I actually felt it was a bit embarrassing and kind of unheroic.
Because he knows he can't die.
Yeah.
He's just
it was just
live.
like he starts going on
He's
and
got to
on.
live again.
And I was a bit kind of like, it's a bit cringeworthy, that.
Yeah,
Whereas this, I just felt it just really was one of the best regenerations that they had. And, you know, it just tops off what's otherwise a really fantastic story.
Great setting as well. The let down by another sort of rubbery-looking monster.
Yes, the Magna Beast. Yes, that's
Which
kind of like
plagues poor old Peter Davison.
that's kind of like quietly forgotten. The one thing you've got
It's
to
kind
give
of
it though is that Graham Harper
the thing is,
realised it was rubbish and kind of like shot it in bad light.
But it's like, was it even needed, really?
I think they needed a threat down there, but yeah, I mean,
it just seemed to be like, let's throw in a monster because we have to have a monster.
yes.
But you don't always need to have a monster, because sometimes the worst monsters are the humans themselves. You know?
Yeah, well, definitely in this story.
Yeah. Yes. Now, Perry herself. I think she was. Was this the BBC's attempt to bring sex appeal back to...
I don't think it was so much the BBC's as Russell T Davis's.
Russell T. John Nathan
Not
Turner.
John Nathan Turner. Another double barrel name.
I mean, lots of bikini photos of her on the internet.
John Nathan Turner, for a gay man, was certainly all for having the girls be as sexy as, you know, Nissa losing her skirt, Tegan going around in tight leather mini skirts, and then there was Perry.
It's always sort of leaning over so you could kind of get a look at her cleavage all the time.
And her costume at times, it was, you know, how practical was that costume? But, you know, I think Nicola Bryant brought a lot to the character.
She did,
so.
I mean, I love her stuff with Colin Baker. It would have been nice to have had a little bit longer run with Peter Davison.
Yeah.
I think there's
but
definitely
I sometimes like it when a doctor has their companion, and I like the fact that Colin, you know, you look at, you know, sort of like Patrick Troughton and Jamie McCrimmon and Sylvester McCoy and Ace, and then you've got the Sixth Doctor and Perry.
Mm-hmm.
And it may have been, I mean, you do know that they have been doing a few Big Finish adventures with the Fifth Doctor and Perry
Fifth Doctor
together.
No, yes. I haven't. No, okay, I need to listen to those then.
Yeah.
Send them in to us. We'd like to review them.
Yeah, well, I know Jason Ellery.
We should be getting review copies.
Yeah, well, we haven't really covered Big Finish. Would people like us, would you like to see us cover a bit more Big Finish?
That would be, that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, it's another part. So we haven't really looked at the books or Big Finish productions themselves. So now, Doctor Who 2012 says that they think Perry was the sexiest companion ever.
Ditsy is going to be cosplaying Perry.
For me, the sex, I've really got to say, I know it's a modern choice, but I'm going with Karen Gillan was my sexiest companion, very closely followed by Zoe Herriot and Lala Ward as Romana running around Paris in a school uniform. No wonder Tom Baker married her straight away. So we're just checking in the message boards now to have a look and see what people are saying. Put in
Doctor Who
questions.
2012, the monster was the only bad thing about this story.
Certain aspects of it could have had more money spent on it, but I think that was the genius of Graham Harper, was the way he would film it. You know, when you think of a story like Time Flight,
yes,
there's nothing wrong with the script for Time Flight. It's just really badly directed.
Right, yeah.
Like, they've got them standing underneath a Concorde, and they obviously, the BBC couldn't afford a Concorde, so they've just got a Concorde leg. But it's all perfectly lit. There's no shadow of the Concorde over them, so you get no sense there. And Graham Harper, you know, he did 2 stories, and straight away became literally the most popular director to have worked on Doctor Who, and was brought straight back by Russell T Davies when the show returned. In fact, when he was doing the Cyberman 2-parter, there was a lot of excitement among fans that he was returning.
Yeah, absolutely. Whovian War says, what I like is Perry is this random stranger who he just met in the last episode, and he is risking his life for this stranger. That's heroic in my eyes.
That's what the Doctor is. I always get the impression the Doctor is the kind of person who would risk his life for anybody.
Blah 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 1999 says Mary Tam was better than Lala.
I just think it's choice there. I'm not going to say, I preferred Lala Ward, but then again, probably Lala Ward had a better chemistry with Tom Baker. She was in it for 2 seasons. Mary Tam was only in it for the 1 season. But I'm not really going to say any more, because I thought Mary Tam was great as well. I've got no qualms with her performance as Romana. I wish she'd done it a bit longer than leaving after 1 season.
Yeah, and I guess Mary Tam's Romana was a bit more serious because they had a mission.
Yeah.
It was a specific mission.
Yes.
And that was the reason why she was there, was to be the assistant to help the Doctor solve this key to time mystery. Whereas after she regenerated and had her new form, she just chose to be there because she wanted...
Yeah.
She was there for the crack, really.
Yes. Well, there was even stuff that the Gallifreyans were demanding she comes back.
But she didn't want it. She just wanted to be a free spirit and enjoy herself. And so Lala Ward, I think, her version of it encapsulated the free spirit of that version of Romana. Huanma says, I agree, I like Romana the best. Huanma is asking, is Shada going to be restored, or Shada going to be restored finally with animation for the missing bits?
Well, I've heard rumours of this.
There's rumours, but only rumours.
I've heard rumours of this. I haven't heard any confirmation. The only that To Entertain have confirmed that after the Reign of Terror, they're going to do one more animated story.
Yeah.
Partly animated story. However, there's other possibilities outside of Shada. You've got the Ice Warriors, which is missing episodes 2 and 3. You've got the 10th Planet, which is missing episode 4, and even some fans have mentioned about Moonbase, which are missing episodes 1 and 3. You could easily animate those. It would be nice. There'd be there's budgetary constraints.
I know.
It would be nice, and maybe To Entertain will animate those. It's just that they can confirm that's what they've got planned at the moment.
Indeed.
It would be lovely to see Shada animated. We do actually have linking material which was filmed by Tom Baker for the video. I've got to say, I really enjoy. There's something about Tom Baker and his natural, zest for life and just his booming voice. I think he does a fantastic job on the Shada video, and I really enjoyed it. Some people there mentioned they're going to have no, they've actually mentioned here Ian Levine sponsored it. So that's actually what they're talking about here, is a fan animated Shada, not a To Entertain one.
Right. Okay.
So whether Ian Levine is the super fan who actually found all the missing episodes, and he actually was one of the guys who helped create the Spice Girls as well, because he's a record producer.
As blah 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 1999 says, it'd be weird seeing Shada, seeing how some of it was actually used for the Five Doctors.
Well, I watched it on video when they released it as a.
But if if there are scenes which are canon to the Five Doctors story.
Yeah, I just viewed it as that they grabbed him while he was in the middle of his Shada adventure. So, but it would be nice if Shada gets animated. But, let's see what happens. I'll wait for an announcement from To Entertain.
Caves of Androzani, it is a great DVD to own. I think you should definitely get this. If you don't have it in your collection already.
Well, I would have assumed everybody who's watching this has got them all in their collection anyway.
It seems to be from the chat room. Everyone seems to have seen this one, so that's good.
You cannot be a Doctor Who fan and not have seen the Caves of Androzani.
Well, you can if you've only introduced the Doctor in 2005.
Yeah, well, if you're a new Doctor, but if you're a new Doctor Who fan, if somebody once asked me this on a message board, they said they were a new Doctor Who fan, could I recommend them some stories? And then he said I recommended them more stories than there had actually been in new Doctor Who. So, Caves of Androzani is definitely one that I would recommend to anybody. And if somebody's a new fan of Doctor Who, only seen David Tennant and Matt Smith, definitely one I'd recommend to them, along with something like City of Death, or The Pyramids of Mars, or Remembrance of the Daleks. Something along those, a really good story.
And of course, all of Peter Davison and all of Colin Baker are now available.
Yes.
So you can actually watch them in order now.
Yeah.
Instead of the random order that they get released in. Yes.
So I think that's bringing us to the end of our show now for this week.
Indeed.
Now we'll be back, even though Doctor Who's off the air now, sadly, until September. Got September away. And that's something else I noticed at the end of the episode, that they didn't have anything for us on the Christmas special.
No clips for the
clips for the Christmas special.
But they've only just started filming it.
I know.
They probably don't have enough key scenes
We
that
didn't
could
even
go
get
into a
a
trailer.
name.
True, we don't even know what the title is.
And I felt it didn't even lead into the Christmas special, so it'll be interesting. I'm assuming when Comic Relief comes around, we do a Comic Relief or a Red Nose Day. They usually do some kind of clip that leads into the Christmas special.
No idea.
They're filming the Christmas special, and then they start filming the new series end of February, beginning of March. So that means we're not even going to get a montage at the Christmas special.
That's true. No coming next. Huanma, I love both Genesis and Talons and almost everything with Tom Baker in it.
Yeah. Those are two great story, Genesis and Talons. Two
but
of my
Whovian
favourites.
Wars controversially says, I'm probably the only one who doesn't like Genesis of the Daleks. Well,
You know,
we can't.
that's the great thing about Doctor Who. You know, I've been on messengers or been with fans, and I've met fans who said that they like Time Lash, or they like, I've got sitting on my shelf Trial of a Time Lord on DVD. I've watched all the extras, but I still can't bring myself to be able to rewatch Trial of a Time Lord.
I don't mind Trial.
I have serious issues with that story. It was like when that came back, it's like, oh my god, I campaigned to stop this show being cancelled.
Ditsy says, I loved Time Lash.
See, everybody likes something.
And Ditsy says, I love Trial of the Time Lord.
I mean, I remember when I was a teenager and you'd be reading Doctor Who Monthly, and the guy who reviewed all the videos at the back hated anything that had been produced from the Graham Williams period. And two of my favourite stories two of my favourite stories, The Sunmakers and City of Death.
Yeah.
City of Death is probably my favourite Doctor Who story, and he hated them. So everybody has their favourites. Everybody, the style of Doctor Who, you can have a comedy episode, a horror episode, an action episode, a romance episode. It constantly, that's the wonder of Doctor Who, that you never know what's going to happen in the next story.
Indeed, no, sure, absolutely. And I think, well, I mean, we can discuss it in next week's show, but I think going forward into the next season, hopefully we're going to have a bit more of that.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week. Doctor Who may be over. We may have a wait till September, but we're going to be do a season overview of what we thought of the past season. Plus, we'll also be discussing Sarah Jane Adventures, and we'll be reviewing the latest Doctor Who DVD, Colony in Space. So, you might want to quickly go out and get that and watch it before we review. Actually, the point is we're supposed to...
Well, we'll recommend... The idea is we recommend. We recommend if, for those who...
actually, to be honest, everybody here is going to buy it and watch it anyway.
But not everybody...
going to discuss it.
Not everybody buys every DVD as and when they come out. So there might be an order to what they might buy, and maybe if we can help make those decisions... Mm-hmm. If there's a DVD, for instance, that you think that we should, you're thinking about, you're not too sure, you're on the fence, but you want our opinion, just tweet us, let us know, and we'll perhaps feature it on a future episode.
Anyway, I'm Sean Harry.
I'm Elisar Cabrera,
and we've been talking Who.
Indeed, and we will see you at the same time next week.